You're listening to Cattywampus.
So, Steve.
Yes, David.
Tell me about the Apple Vision Pro.
I mean, it looks interesting? Question mark? I mean, it's a VR headset without being a VR headset, except it is a VR.
It's a VR headset without Apple admitting it's a VR headset.
Right. It's spatial. It's spatial computing, which just sounds like a really fancy way of saying it's it's Meta's Quest 3, but way more expensive and probably ultimately nicer.
Part of that is that Apple, it is their way to always have a special name for things that already exist.
Well, correct. They're never the first one to market, but they're always the best one to market.
It's not
depending
HDR.
on who you ask.
It's not HDR. It's XDR. It's not HD. It's a Retina display. It's been their way forever. It's not Dolby Atmos. It's spatial audio.
Which have you listened to a lot of stuff in spatial audio? It's
not a lot. I've definitely tried it. As I am a weird old guy, borderlining between Gen X and millennial. Not a lot of the music I like is in spatial audio, so it doesn't come up a lot. But I have sampled it and tried it. It's like anything. Some people mix it better than others.
Right. I actually read the other day that Apple was offering bonuses to artists that actually go out of their way to put stuff in spatial audio. Of course, you can't just phone it in and just put a rhythm track on the backside and pretend that you've done something.
Do you remember the SACD craze?
Vaguely. You said SAC. You said SACD. I was like, yeah, I had the Sonic Adventure soundtrack. Yeah, that shit was good. That's a banger.
Yeah, no, SACD was the other competitor because there were two formats. It was SACD and DVD audio.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was basically 5.1 sound mixes for music. I mean, it's what it is. It's what they're doing now, which is a Dolby Atmos sound mix for music.
Yes, I remember this now because I was working at Best Buy when DVD audio became a thing. And I remember seeing car stereos getting sold with DVD audio and looking at people and go, you're never going to use that. Our DVD CD section is like one bay wide and it's a single rack.
Then SACD focused more on what if we just gave you high-end beyond CD quality. And SACD made a lot more sense in the sense of like you could re-release stuff that was in stereo with just because the masters were always at that quality. So like, hey, you already have the files. Just put it on the SACD. Like it made a little bit more sense, but it still didn't make a lot of sense because you couldn't convey to people why they should spend twice as much on this versus a regular CD.
Well, I mean,
that also won't play in a CD player.
That's still the same argument you have now with people trying to push lossless audio and lossless formats and things like that. The vast majority of people are never going to know the damn difference.
No. And we talked about this actually on the VHS episode, the last episode, of like the weird dip of like vinyl sounds really good, cassettes sound worse, CDs are a step in the right direction, and then we decided to start crushing bit rates and sampling things down via streaming, and we've never recovered. And movies are the same way. Like streaming movies don't look as like people don't care. People have never cared about quality.
No, because I mean, for the most part, even when I'm listening to Spotify, I'm not really thinking about the fact that wow, this could sound infinitely better if it was, if this was a lossless track or if I had downloaded this as lossless and stored it locally. I'm just thinking, wow, good sounds make happy.
All audio and video is all about where are you doing your downsampling from the master format.
Right.
Every medium has a master format. And as a consumer, because we live in America, so all art is mitigated through capital. The question becomes, who's going to take the master format and give it to you in a more digestible, crushed down format? And it really becomes a question of pick your poison. Like who do you want it? Do you want Apple to crush it down for you? Spotify to crush it down for you? Do you want you to do the crushing down from your home device, whether it be an AV receiver or what have you? With very few examples can you get the true lossless format, not just formats we call lossless, but an actual no compression format. And the answer is that there's just not a home media solution to that. And to be fair, that is the battle. And the current solution is streaming, which is actually significantly worse than most of the home movie and audio formats before it.
I mean, we're stuck in that mostly due to bandwidth restrictions, just based on the infrastructure of the United States, which most of the stuff is predominantly being made for to market to first.
Throwing out some numbers. The average bit rate on a movie file that is sent to, talking about the movie files that are sent to like theaters, filmmakers, they grade the film, and it's usually a 4K digital intermediate. Whether it was shot in 4K or not, that's a whole other issue. We're getting to the point now where generally it is, but there's still a lot of movies that aren't. But if you end up with a 4K digital intermediate that's ready to go for theaters, the average bit rate that is sent to theaters is about 200 megabits per second.
Okay.
And I guess my question is, because I literally don't know, are there any... Well, I know there aren't any streaming services that offer that, but the internet infrastructure could support that in a lot of places. Not everywhere, obviously. Certainly not everywhere in America, and certainly not everywhere worldwide.
I think it also just comes down to cost benefit, especially for when you're looking at corporations, studios, distributors, streaming services. There's not really a benefit because people aren't clamoring for it.
No.
Like we've been saying, most people don't notice the difference, nor do they care to notice the difference. So outside of niche audiophiles and cinemaphiles...
Freaks.
Yes.
Freaks like me. Give me your bits.
Right. Most of us don't care, and it's not going to make much of a difference to them. I mean, hence the reason that, 4K media is so hard to come by now, with Best Buy deciding to strip their stores of all of it as of this month.
As Brian and I have bitched to you and to the audience, we are really struggling in the pre-ordering 4K game, because it's like... You basically have to pre-order the disc at if you want the disc the day it comes out, you pre-order it at 4 places and hope their return policy is generous. Yeah. And see which one shows up first. It really sucks. And even 4K, so 4K discs are about, and these are averages and max capacity. Well, actually, or that's the average of a movie file, or of a file that is sent for a movie in a theater. The cap on a 4K disc is 120. So it's close. It's good. I mean, it's about half. But when you compare that to the higher end streamer, so if you pay for the extra stream, the extra 4K stream on Netflix, or you go to Disney Plus, those are the two of the higher end streamers. They'll top out at about 30 to 35 average megabits per second. Okay. So even a 4K disc is still 4 times the quality of streaming. In terms of visual, in terms of just pure information in any given frame.
I mean, you can see a visual difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's still not theatrical. It's still not.
No,
we're still,
God, no.
At best, half theatrical. And even though it's both are 4K, and if you go into a Dolby theater, you're still getting that Dolby Vision, amazing color timing. That visual grade. You're getting the Atmos sound uncompressed. It's still compressed at home. And I do think one of the interesting things about it too is it is hard, even when you show people the difference, and people can see it. I think you're right. They don't care.
No, it's because it's not earth shattering. It's not life changing. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like the first time. I hate to say
when
this,
the train came out at people in the theater in the 1910s.
Right.
Oh my God, the train's here.
Yeah, exactly. It's not.
I know that's an apocryphal story, but it's still fun to think about.
Yeah, it's not like that, or the first time when Avatar came out and people went to go see 3D movies and they were like, holy shit, this is the craziest thing I've ever watched.
Versus when they saw Avatar 2 in high frame rate and went, this isn't ready for primetime yet.
Yeah, this isn't. No, what was the point of this?
One of the few films you'll be able to see in 3D on the Apple Vision Pro. Because
I did not realize they were doing that.
It's because Disney Plus is one of the only apps giving the Apple Vision Pro native support.
That's true. I do remember hearing about that.
Everyone else in the last 2 weeks has been like, nah, dog.
But no, I think the Apple Vision Pro is going to be an interesting experiment. I think like most things Apple does, the first generation is for beta testing. And I don't encourage anybody to jump into the first generation.
No, I wouldn't. I thought, when it was announced, I thought about it.
I mean, I may have access to one coming up here soon, just by virtue of what I do for a living.
When it got announced a couple months ago, I was like, hey, I'm not a big, I want to be an early adopter, but I thought maybe I could do this. Like maybe I should do this. And as time went on and it became clearer and clearer that more and more apps were just going to not support it, I was like, all right, like if Disney is the only streaming service that's going to support 3D content, and given Apple's track record with gaming, I don't know that I really want to invest in this Gen 1.
Go watch The Mandalorian in 3D.
Oh, I don't think that'll even be offered.
I know. But I can sit on Tatooine.
Great. The place I love being.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we keep going there. Thank
you know what I love so much about Tatooine is how much I get to see it.
It's a comfy spot. It feels like going home.
I just love, you remember the first Star Wars where the whole premise of the movie is this place sucks and the main character wanted to leave? What if we were just there all the time?
I mean, in its defense, at least Ahsoka, I don't think ever went to Tatooine. So that's a point for that show.
That's the only point for that show.
You mean Star Wars Rebels season 4?
The thing about that is I liked Star Wars Rebels.
I did. Rebels was very good.
And if it had just been the next season of Rebels, I probably would have enjoyed it more, but like I think if you haven't seen Rebels, that show is baffling, and I think if you have seen Rebels, that show is very frustrating.
Yes.
Because I don't think it serviced
that was my biggest
anyone.
Gripe. Yeah, that was my biggest gripe with the whole thing is if you come into this blind, having never watched Rebels, it makes no goddamn sense. There's no stakes. You are not attached to these characters. You have no idea what their motivations are. It is a very strange choice for a show.
I thought the whole show was just, and obviously part of this is because they're building towards a movie that probably isn't going to happen. Of like, we're going to connect all the Disney Plus shows. And now suddenly they're like, never mind, there's a Mandalorian movie. And I was like, yeah, that's probably what you should have done from the start.
Yep.
But hey, the good news is that movie will be on 3D and Disney, or on Disney Plus. The fact that Disney is like the only real partner with the Apple Vision Pro is fascinating to me. And that they even got like, I believe Bob Iger was on stage, right? Like he came out when they announced it.
It was him, or was it
Bob
him. Iger?
It had to have been him. It wasn't Chapek.
Well, I knew that much. I just couldn't remember if it was Iger or if it was somebody
Iger.
else from Disney.
I think Bob Iger and Tim Cook were on stage together. I think they were about 20 feet apart because if they touched, capitalism would have exploded.
Right.
Like in Time Cop.
Yeah, exactly. They would both just melt.
I mean, next year I'll be pitching my new spec script, Capitalism Cop. Where two CEOs
I think you just described cops. Might want to cut that part.
No, I've been leaving that shit in. I don't want to move on from Ahsoka unless you had more to say about Ahsoka, actually, first, if you wanted to.
I mean, not particularly. I mean, ultimately, I didn't hate it. I'll say that. I didn't hate it, but I don't understand why it needed to exist. Like,
I get
especially under the name Ahsoka, I don't know why it needed to exist.
I don't think it's the worst thing Star Wars has done.
It's not Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, under the Disney tenure. But I think I didn't hate it. I think I hated that this is the baseline. I've probably said this before in the recordings, but Disney has a flattening effect on things. They always have, where they don't make a movie, they don't make a show. They make a product that goes across movies, TV shows, merchandise, theme parks, Disney on Ice, Broadway plays. Like Disney wants something that across a whole bunch of things. And I don't even think that I don't even want to say that dismissively. I think there's value to that because I think that can lead to inventive things because Lion King's a great movie and the Lion King Broadway show is also very good. Like this, there are possibilities there, but I think for Star Wars and for Marvel,
Right.
I don't think it's helped them.
Yeah,
You know?
I still don't. I don't understand the obsession, or Disney's obsession, Star Wars obsession with using the volume for everything.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, I get that. But,
it's ostensibly cheaper, I will say.
I mean, I get it, but at the same time, everything ends up looking so much the damn same.
Yeah, it looks like it's liminal spaces. You know, it's
Right.
the Marvel complaint. Whereas, why is everything in a nondescript hallway?
It all feels lazy, and
Yeah.
considering the feedback they're getting for things like Star Wars and the Marvel Universe and how things aren't doing too hot lately, you would think they would take that to heart.
I mean,
Because,
I think they have.
ultimately this is going to hurt the bottom line severely.
They have. I think the issue here, and all of last year, they've talked about how they are aware. The issue we're going to run into as, like, again, consumers, because that's the system we're in. This ship is so big, to turn it will take years. They knew this before Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania came out in February of last year. A year. It's been almost a year since Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But the pipeline of production, the changes they're implementing in January of last year, we will not see until 2025 at the earliest. I mean, that's just the nature of these massive extended productions. What was the other thing that came out? They released 3 movies last year. I know Marvel did. I just couldn't even.
Did they?
Guardians 3.
But Guardians actually was well received. So
Guardians was well received, and Guardians. I mean, that's the James Gunn touch. It's not. I don't think it's lost on Disney either that the most critically and commercially successful thing they did last year was from the guy who literally left them for another company. But we can't see any of those changes being implemented for years because it's the Titanic. They saw the iceberg with a lot of yards to go, a lot of leagues to go, but it's a big ass ship. And I watched my Titanic 4K when it came out a month ago, and guess what? They steered their hearts out. They still hit the fucking iceberg.
that's fair and a good point. Something I didn't really think about how large.
It's just too big. It's too big.
This whole thing is.
Now, granted, the solution is spend less. But a company, any company that has to operate on quarter by quarter earnings and quarter by quarter growth can't not spend more. You have to present an effort towards growth. So you can't just go to your shareholders and go, we're going to shut it down until we get it right. Because what you're telling your shareholders is we're not going to be giving you money for a year and you have to trust us. That's not going to fly. They'll be fired. But I think a lot of people have stepped away from a lot of this stuff because the biggest cultural juggernaut, everyone said the monoculture was dead with streaming, but Disney kind of proved them wrong. But that era has ended, and it ended last year. Like we hit it. We hit the wall, and the monoculture died again. Like everybody went, I'm out of this. This isn't interesting to me anymore. Barbie is now the thing.
Right. Which is the power of memes, man.
Oh, well, also, we'll learn the wrong lessons.
Oh, yeah, we obviously have.
Oh, people like toy
wait
movies.
for the Barbie cinematic universe.
People like toy movies. I'm like, no, people liked that movie because it was good.
No, they want Twister, the movie. Not that Twister, though. The other one.
You know
the
there's
fun one with the colors.
Are you aware of the Twister sequel coming out this year?
I did hear about that, yes.
Twisters.
I can't decide. It's either going to be amazing or a glorious train wreck, and I'm here for it either way.
It's the director of Minari.
Okay.
Yeah, that very sensitive, amazing, character-driven drama about an immigrant family trying to start a farm in the 80s, and Steven Yeun, and it's beautiful and sensitive. He's making Twisters.
That's bizarre. I'm sold.
I know, right? You're like, well, look, either he's going to be eaten alive and the movie will be nothing, or this will be the most insane blockbuster I've ever seen in my life. It's one or the other. There's no middle ground. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, You're just
Do
like,
we know if it's actually a direct sequel to the original, or
oh my god, if Steven Yeun shows up in old age makeup, or he's playing his own son grown up from Minari,
that would be fascinating.
how great would that be? It's like I watched
his kid grows up to be a tornado chaser and ends up looking exactly like his dad because of
yeah, I
reasons.
look exactly like my dad, and then what's his name, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, who was in Licorice Pizza. He could show up and be Dusty from the original Twister. He could be his son. He could be his own dad's son in that movie as well.
Jesus,
is that a too deep a cut that Philip Seymour Hoffman was in Twister? And then I remember
yeah, he was. Yeah, he was in Twister.
Yeah, his name was
he?
Dusty. I remember the character name. Yeah, this is embarrassing.
No, I watched that movie, the hell out of that movie when I was a kid.
Anyway, sorry for that Disney into Twisters tangent.
No, that was perfect. That was exactly what our listeners want.
When will you talk about Bill Paxton?
All several of them.
Yeah, I'll tell you once we stop recording. I'll tell you offline how many listeners we have. It will shock you, because it shocked me.
Now, Brian mentioned that to me, and I was like, well, that's just baffling.
And it's not... We stopped recording for like 2 fucking years.
Yeah, we haven't done this in a couple of years. Like, I'm not even close to on my A game.
I think it's because we hit a couple topics that have become more... we were prescient, is basically, I think, what happened here. I think you get a lot of people searching in podcasts for a topic where they're like, I don't know the name of it, but I want to know something. I want to hear people talk about X. And in our first 2 years, our first 50 episodes before we took a hiatus, we talked about a lot of stuff that has shockingly become way more relevant now. We were talking about it because we were just fascinated by it. We were just like, like, this is weird, right? Let's talk about this. And now it's in vogue. Now it's in fashion again.
If it wasn't for dumb luck, I'd have no luck at all. I'll take it.
I like to think we're trendsetters.
I've never been trendy on my almost 38 years on this planet.
And that's the tragedy of being a trendsetter, is that you start it and you'll never know if you were right or not. We're the Oscar Wilde of today, hated in our own time. One day we'll be seen as geniuses.
That's the greatest compliment I think you've ever given yourself.
Certainly, because I hate myself, so I can't imagine I've given myself anything better. The best I could say to myself is one day someone will understand.
One day somebody will get
One
me.
day, long after my suicide, someone will understand. Anyway, so, you mentioned you mentioned earlier, and obviously I know, but for the audience, you've had some VR experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've played with it in the past. Back before Palmer Luckey went off the fucking deep end when he was...
Jesus, what happened to that fucking guy? Anyway, that's like 10 years old, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm sure no one even listening knows who that is at this point.
Yeah. Well, long before he went off the deep end, when he was just starting out trying to get people sold on VR, I actually kickstarted the original Oculus and had one of the dev kits just to fuck around on.
You truly ground floor there.
Yeah, so I still have the dev kit sitting around.
I guess anyone who owned the Game Boy VR was in the ground floor. But I'm gonna losing the ability to see the color red really puts you on the cutting edge of VR. But yeah, so I messed with that eons ago, and then I've messed with the Oculus since then, and I've kind of fallen off of it as years have gone by, ever since Meta took ownership of Oculus. What also feels like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the games just aren't there.
There's not many.
Enough.
I mean,
there are good VR games every year, but there's just not enough of them,
Right. There's killer apps out there. There's fantastic games. Like, I still swear by anybody that has the opportunity to play VR through Steam should play Half-Life Alyx. That's a fantastic game.
That's a big one. Yeah.
And apparently Asgard's Wrath 2, which came out the end of last year, is apparently phenomenal. And it's something I would absolutely love to play, but I'm not going out of my way to go buy a Quest 2 or a Quest 3 to do it. Especially just one game.
how much is the Quest? So there's the Quest 3.
That's the
Like,
most recent one. Let's see. Shop Meta
How
Quest
much is
3.
the most? Like, if I wanted to do like a Meta Quest, what am I versus the $3,500 Apple charge where I probably couldn't even play this game? What is the Meta? What does good old Mark Zuckerberg want from my wallet to do this?
Looks like they start at 500 for 128 gigs of storage.
Okay, so like a game or two probably.
Yeah, that's a little rough because you spend $150 more and it goes all the way up to 512.
Can you tether it? Like, can you
can tether it to your PC through USB-C, but I've heard it's shit.
Can you tether it to like
not
a
great.
phone or a local storage device? Like, could I put like a hard drive in my pocket and USB-C it?
Don't know. The only thing I could think of is if it would use micro SD of some kind.
Yeah, even that. Yeah, that'd be cool. Like anything, I guess it's an infrastructure issue. It's like how many people are actually using this stupid thing.
Well, right, and that's the other thing is why go out of your way to even think about stuff like this when, again, it's still a niche market. There's not enough people out there trying to play VR. I mean, right now, if numbers are to be believed, PSVR is doing terribly.
Well, it also feels like it feels like well over a year ago, Sony gave up. And I don't know if that's a chicken or the egg thing where the numbers were already bad, so they gave up, or they gave up, so the numbers have dropped, or, like, it just feels like I don't hear Sony go, and this will, of course, be our new VR title. Like they just stopped doing that last year.
Yeah, they really have been kind of radio silent on VR. Outside of Horizon Call of the Mountain, I couldn't even tell you what VR games are even available on the PS5.
Horizon is just a cursed franchise, too.
Yeah,
it's not its fault. It just keeps coming out while other things eat its lunch, or it's coming out on formats that are just like not popular.
What was it? It was the first time it came out against Breath of the Wild.
Didn't both times it came out against Zelda? Did it come out like the same week as Zelda? Or no, it was Zelda actually, and then Elden Ring. It was Zelda and Elden Ring? Is that what it was?
Yeah, the first time it came out against Breath of the Wild, and that ate its lunch. Mm-hmm. And then the second time it came out against Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Which it had not a snowball's chance in hell against.
Which really sucks because I hear they're very good games. That they're good. They're not as good as those two games they happen to open against, but they are good.
They're beautiful games.
Yeah,
they're fantastic
I hear nothing
games,
but
and
good
they're
things.
beautiful.
Because both of those games got me to play a type of game I never played before. Like I'd never been into Zelda. Played Breath of the Wild all the way through. Never could get into From Software games. Literally played Elden Ring for 100+ hours to the final boss. Those were like insanely popular. Like if I play it all the way to end, it's popular because I don't fucking I'm not in this world.
Oh,
I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Like and meanwhile Horizon, I think I touched the first one a bit. Like I was like, oh, Breath of the Wild is right there.
I mean, they're definitely worth picking up if you've got some spare time, feel like laying out on the couch and just having a go at them. They're fantastic games.
There's got to be a PS5 quote unquote $10 upgrade remake coming for the first one that I'll probably pick up at some point. Given that the Last of Us 2 just got a $10 upgrade or whatever.
Yeah, there's been rumors of them
sure
remastering the original for PS5.
I actually don't mind the Last of Us 2 thing where they're like, hey, if you have it, $10 and it'll be the PS5 version. I'm like, okay.
No, I still agree with that. I
don't
really
mind that.
I wish more companies would do that with some of these games that have come out.
I think that's totally reasonable versus like Dead Space where it's like it's $50 and I'm like,
Well, to me that's a little bit different because Dead Space was from the ground up completely like that was new engine, new everything, completely rebuilt. That was a brand new game.
It's still a remake though. It's still a game I've played.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And I do have Game Pass, and I played on the Xbox on my couch, and it was 8 hours. I had a blast, but $50 for 8 hours that's a little steep.
Yeah,
it's just a little steep. It's just a little. I don't know, man. It's a little. It's rough, and not every game is gonna be that way. I understand that. Like, hey, Resident Evil 2 remake. It's not 8 hours. It's a lot. Like, that's a huge like I get it. Like, and I guess the real solution is it's a case by case scenario. But unfortunately, that's not how this system works. Once somebody sets the precedent, everybody goes, well, fuck, we can put our remake out for that much money, regardless of how good or bad it is. Like, not to say the Dead Space remake is bad. It is a really good remake. And I understand it's recreating how it felt to play it at the time, and they did a lot of enhancements and a lot of changes to the mechanics that make it feel really good. It's still like an 8 to 10 hour experience. Like, it's still a pretty short experience for the price. But of course, I think they knew, like, well, it's going to be on Game Pass. And so therefore, it doesn't really mean anything because you pay your $17 a month and you can play anything on PC or Xbox and you're good. Because that's Microsoft's move now is we don't do hardware. It's very clear now that the Xbox is going to as a piece of hardware.
I mean, we were talking about the layoffs earlier. Apparently, a good chunk of the layoffs were in physical media departments.
Yeah.
So, and there's been lots and lots of rumors of Microsoft just completely doing away with physical sales.
Well, I mean, they're it's not even rumors because they can't. Their legal department can't fucking redact shit to save their life. We know court documents that that they want an Xbox Series X that doesn't have a disk drive. That's coming, and apparently it looks like the fucking Mac Pro trash can or whatever.
My favorite.
And we also know from these leaked documents, and again, I say leaked, it's not leaked. Microsoft failed to redact publicly available documents. It's not a leak, it's on them. So I have to keep correcting myself because I want to make it clear. It's not like some bad actor stole these documents from a company. They fucked up. And so we know their shit. They want to be a software company because they know the future is not hardware for them.
Right.
So I guess that's just the way things going. So I guess me complaining about like the cost of the Dead Space remake is it's going to be moot very quickly. You know, like it's going to be like not an issue because
I think by the end of this year, by the end of this year, Microsoft's going to be doing everything digitally and trying to put everything on Game Pass they can possibly put on Game Pass.
What game just got? So, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. There was a big game that got announced recently and was like, it's not going to have a disc. We're not even going to do it.
Oh, Hellblade.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, and Alan Wake 2 didn't have one either, right?
Nope. Alan Wake you had to buy it digitally everywhere.
Yeah. I think.
Which actually seems, there's anecdotal evidence, at least so far, that it may have hurt their sales.
Which is so fascinating because, you know, it's all about consumer perception as opposed to the reality, which is you buy the Call of Duty 3 disc. It's just a passkey to download 100 gigs to play the game.
Correct.
So you never really owned this, even if you buy. I mean, what's happening with games is what happened with movies. You know, physical media is niche. It's becoming more and more niche, and it means ownership is niche, and it really means historically this is a blip. You know, I don't know if you saw the film Mank. The David Fincher film Mank with Gary Oldman.
I know of it. I don't know that I've ever actually
like
seen
2020.
it. Yeah.
Good movie. I like that movie a lot. It's about Herman Mankiewicz who wrote Citizen Kane. But the context of this is it's set in the late 1930s or early 1940s. And at a certain point, Mank is in a meeting with a studio head. And he goes, "This is the only industry where we sell our consumers a product they don't get to keep." He's talking about movies. And I've really thought about that recently. The idea of people owning art is a blip.
It's a relatively new idea.
From the 1970s to like maybe 10 years ago. It's a small, like half a century blip in art where I think we had this really cool period where you could have a piece of art and no one could take it from you. You could experience it anytime you wanted to on your own, you know, at your own time, at your own leisure. And you and I grew up in it. So it's like all we know.
Right.
But I now kind of am aware of the fact that like, oh, we're weird. We're the weird ones. Like most people didn't have this, and most people moving forward will not have this. And that is a really depressing way to end this podcast. So we should keep talking.
Yeah, no, because as I look over at my game collection, I'm just like, it's decently sized, but it's like, if I compare that against my, say, Steam library,
right,
it's infinitesimally smaller.
Yeah, oh no, totally.
So I don't know. So I don't know why I'm really bitching about the idea that I would lose access to being able to buy physical media. I'm already not doing it, but I don't know. Just something about it bothers me. Just something about
we grew up
not owning it.
Because we grew up with the idea of like, to quote Christopher Nolan as he's on the campaign trail for Oppenheimer, because he's talked about how frustrated he is with streaming and what Warner Brothers did and why he left Warner Brothers to make Oppenheimer at Universal. He goes, the thing about Blu-ray is Warner Brothers can't break into your house and take it. He's right. He's absolutely right. And this is true of games now. I think games is really starting to reckon with it right now. And I think movies went through this about a decade ago. And now we're here with games. Where games is at this sort of like precipice, this touchstone moment where you're like, oh, we're going to have to decide. And yeah, for some studios, it's already true. Those Call of Duty discs are meaningless.
Yeah.
That's not me talking about the content of them. Got him.
Wah, wah.
Got him.
Take you devs who might have lost their jobs today.
Sorry, I'm really sorry, guys. This really sucks.
Yeah,
look, I get it. No one wants to work on military propaganda. It's not like you got the job thinking, oh boy, I get to do military propaganda no one will even get to own.
Yeah.
My ire is completely at the C-suite. Don't worry. If anyone ever wonders who I'm ever angry at, it's anyone who has the title of executive.
That's fair. That's, you know what? Eat the rich.
Eat them right now. I think a good, actually, to bring it back to the original fate of this, like the Apple Vision Pro, like these apps aren't supporting it. And it makes me think about, like, I know a lot of people have a backlash against like 3D in movies. You have actual artists who worked really hard on actually making movies in 3D. Obviously there were like the Marvel and, box office blockbuster lazy post conversions, but like James Cameron, Ridley Scott, these people took the technology and they worked their ass off to make movies, however you feel about them, that fit that format. Like your Avatar, Prometheus, that shit's gone. Try and buy a TV that can show it to you.
Yeah, you can't.
You'll never be able to see the art the way the artist made it. And it is scary. It is absolutely scary. And maybe I think there was a part of me that I think with the Apple Vision Pro, I thought, oh, this is a way to maybe get some of that back. Because Apple can will stuff into existence. They can will formats. So the idea that they were going to release a 3D headset that supported 3D tech meant, hey, great news. James Cameron, Ridley Scott, like these filmmakers, their stuff could be preserved. And then you have people like Netflix, you have people like Warner Brothers who go, no, we're not supporting it. You're like, okay, I guess we'll never see it. I guess we'll never see it again,
I wouldn't say never. It's just not right now. Not until there's a reason for them to do so. And that's going to take adoption of things like Apple Vision Pro to take off. But that's not going to happen until it's affordable.
I think that's true. No, I think you're very right about that. I actually think, you're right. I think like if this takes off, I think it's just disheartening that you have all these app developers turning off the iPad version of the app so that it won't work on Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah.
You can't even have like a full screen version of the app on this. That's how much people don't want to support this, which feels also like a real paradigm shift for Apple, where it used to be they did something and people followed suit, and now you have people going, I don't think so, and not only not supporting it but turning their shit off for it.
Yeah, it feels weird, but Apple and developers have been at a weird crossroads with each other for the last couple of years, so...
If only developers could, what's the word? Unite in some way? I don't know what the word for it is.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. Sounds like propaganda.
If only they could collect their power in some way. Oh, God, there's a term for that. If only the developers could, what if they got them all in a room? Hear me out. This is a new idea. What if all the developers could send a representative into a room and in their best interests decide what would be best for, I don't know, the conditions in which they work and the benefits they get. What if they could
I'm intrigued. Go
standardize it
on.
in some way? Yeah, I know. I'm a little crazy. I'm sorry. The FBI is knocking at my door right now. Oh, the guns are out.
Don't worry, those are just your friendly neighborhood Pinkertons.
You've been listening to Cattywampus. You can follow us on Instagram at CattyWampusPod. Email us at cattywampuspodcast@gmail.com. Music by Tilly.